The night Daniel decided he was done trying was the same night his life quietly began again, though he did not know it yet. The city lights below his apartment flickered like distant stars, indifferent and cold, and the silence inside his small room felt heavier than the concrete walls around him. He sat on the edge of his bed with his phone in his hand, scrolling through old messages from people who had once promised to stay. Friends who had drifted away. A woman who had said she loved him but could not carry his sadness anymore. An employer who had thanked him for his hard work before letting him go in a short, rehearsed sentence. Each memory felt like a door closing, and Daniel was tired of standing in hallways that led nowhere. He had always been the dependable one, the quiet achiever, the son who never caused trouble. Growing up, he believed that if he worked hard enough and loved deeply enough, the world would return the favor. But somewhere between his father's sudden illness, the bills that piled up faster than his hope, and the crushing weight of expectations he had set for himself, Daniel lost the version of him who believed in better days. He stopped answering calls. He stopped going out. He stopped looking in mirrors because the man staring back at him looked like someone who had already given up. That night, the darkness did not feel poetic or dramatic. It felt ordinary and final. He had spent the entire day pretending everything was fine when his mother asked how the job search was going. He lied with a smile so convincing it scared him. He was tired of lying. Tired of pretending strength when all he felt was exhaustion. The rent was overdue. His savings were nearly gone. His mind whispered the same cruel thought over and over: you are a burden. You are behind. You are not enough. He walked to the window and opened it, letting the cold air bite his face. The city sounded alive, but he felt removed from it, like a ghost watching the living from the other side. For a moment, the idea of disappearing felt like relief. No more expectations. No more disappointment. No more waking up with dread sitting on his chest. He leaned his forehead against the cool glass and closed his eyes. But in that silence, something unexpected happened. A memory surfaced, not of failure, but of a small boy sitting on his father's shoulders, laughing as they watched fireworks explode in the summer sky. His father had always said, no matter how dark it gets, son, light only needs a second to win. Daniel remembered believing that as a child. He remembered thinking his father was the strongest man in the world. When his father got sick, Daniel watched that strength fade, but even in the hospital bed, his father had squeezed his hand and whispered, promise me you won't quit on life. Daniel opened his eyes. His reflection in the window looked broken, but not beyond repair. The thought came softly at first, almost shy: what if this is not the end? What if this is just the night before something changes? He did not feel hopeful. He did not feel brave. But he felt a flicker of curiosity about a future he had not yet seen. And that curiosity became the smallest, most important choice of his life. Instead of stepping deeper into his despair, Daniel stepped back from the window. Instead of sending a goodbye message he had drafted in his notes, he deleted it. Instead of pouring another drink to numb the noise in his head, he poured it down the sink. It was not a dramatic transformation. It was one quiet decision: stay. He picked up his phone again, but this time not to scroll through the past. He searched for a local support group he had once seen mentioned online. His hands trembled as he filled out the contact form. He almost closed the page 3 times, but he pressed submit. It felt insignificant, almost laughable compared to the weight of his problems. Yet in that moment, Daniel chose to reach instead of retreat. The next morning, he woke up expecting the same heaviness, and it was still there. Change had not magically erased his pain. But there was a small difference. He had done something. He had chosen to move, even if only by an inch. Later that day, he received a message from the support group coordinator inviting him to a meeting that evening. His first instinct was to ignore it. His mind tried to convince him he would not fit in, that everyone else would be stronger or more put together. But then he remembered the promise he had made in the quiet of his room: stay. He went. The room was plain, with folding chairs arranged in a circle. A few strangers sat quietly, each carrying their own invisible storms. When it was Daniel's turn to speak, his throat tightened. He wanted to say he was fine. He wanted to perform strength. Instead, his voice cracked as he admitted, I don't know how to keep going. The words hung in the air, fragile and raw. He expected judgment. What he received was understanding. Nods. Soft smiles. Stories that echoed his own fears. For the first time in months, Daniel did not feel alone inside his struggle. That single choice to attend one meeting did not solve his financial problems or instantly restore his confidence. But it shifted something fundamental inside him. He began to see that his pain was not proof of failure, it was proof that he was human. Week after week, he returned to that circle of chairs. He listened. He spoke. He learned that resilience is not loud or glamorous. It is quiet persistence in the face of doubt. Encouraged by the group, Daniel updated his resume again, this time with help. He practiced interviews with a volunteer who offered to coach him. He applied for positions he had once felt unworthy of. Rejections still came, and each one stung. But they no longer felt like final verdicts on his worth. They felt like steps on a longer road. One afternoon, after an interview he was sure he had ruined, Daniel sat on a park bench, replaying every awkward pause and imperfect answer. The old voice began its familiar attack, "You're not cut out for this. You should stop trying." He almost believed it. Then he remembered the night at the window. He remembered that he had already survived what felt impossible. Compared to that, an awkward interview was just discomfort, not doom. A week later, his phone rang with an unknown number. His heart pounded as he answered. The company offered him a position. It was not glamorous, and it did not pay as much as his previous job, but it was a start. Daniel accepted, his voice steady even as tears filled his eyes. Work gave structure to his days again. The routine of waking up with a purpose, of contributing to something outside his own thoughts, slowly rebuilt his confidence. He made mistakes, but he learned from them. He stayed late to improve. He asked questions instead of pretending to know everything. And gradually, the version of Daniel who believed in effort began to return. He also began therapy, another choice that once felt like admitting weakness. In those sessions, he unpacked years of silent pressure he had placed on himself. He learned to separate his identity from his achievements. He learned that asking for help was not a betrayal of strength but an expression of it. Some sessions left him emotionally drained. Others left him lighter. All of them moved him forward. Months passed, and the darkest night of his life began to feel distant, though he never forgot it. It became a reference point, not of shame, but of transformation. He realized that the night he nearly gave up was the night he chose to live differently. Not perfectly, not fearlessly, but honestly. Daniel started volunteering at the same support group that had welcomed him. He greeted newcomers with the same gentle understanding he had once received. When someone said, "I don't know how to keep going," he did not offer empty cliches. He told them about a night when he almost quit, and about one small choice that changed everything. He told them that staying is sometimes the bravest thing a person can do. His relationship with his mother deepened as he opened up about his struggles instead of shielding her from them. They cried together. They laughed more too. The weight of pretending lifted, and in its place grew authenticity. He visited his father's grave one afternoon and sat quietly, feeling both grief and gratitude. "I didn't quit," he whispered. "I almost did, but I didn't." Years later, Daniel would look back on that night not as the moment he broke, but as the moment he began to rebuild. The darkness had been real. The pain had been overwhelming. But within that night was a choice, almost invisible at first, that led him toward a new life. A life where failure did not define him. A life where vulnerability became connection. A life where staying opened doors he could not see when he was standing at the window. He learned that transformation rarely arrives as a grand event. It begins with a decision so small it can be missed. A decision to attend one meeting. To make one phone call. To send one application. To tell one honest truth. To survive one more night. That single choice, repeated over and over, turned his darkest night into a dawn he had once thought impossible. And long after the city lights stopped feeling cold and distant, long after the room that once felt like a prison became just another memory, Daniel carried with him the quiet power of that moment. He understood that the difference between an ending and a beginning can be one choice. On his darkest night, he chose to stay. And in staying, he found a new life waiting for him on the other side of despair.